The OnePlus 12 is arguably the best device the company has put out in years, with it feeling more like the old OnePlus, packing killer specs without breaking the bank. And today, we've got a double header with the phone going up against the iPhone 15 Pro Max, not only in the speed test, but also the battery test. Now, when it comes to speed, the OnePlus 12 is loaded. It's got the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, it has a whopping 16 gigabytes of RAM, and has super fast storage in UFS 4.0. But the iPhone, of course, still has that A17 Pro chip with its crazy high clock speed, it's got NVMe storage, and love it or hate it, it's running on iOS 17. Will that be enough for the iPhone to get the W, or is the OnePlus 12 the flagship killer once again? Alright, we'll kick things off like we always do, starting the stopwatches on each phone and then jumping into the first row, where through Facebook and Starbucks, the two phones are basically neck and neck. Here in Microsoft Word, we're loading the same 500-page document, where once again, the two phones load them at nearly identical rates. And in Excel, it's the same story. Here in the camera app, we're taking portrait selfies on each phone and then waiting for the photos to finish processing, where this time there is a difference, with the OnePlus getting the step over the iPhone, allowing it to take the lead as we start working on Snapseed, applying not one, but two different filters to the same exact high-resolution photo, and then exporting it out to storage, where, from the looks of it, the OnePlus does it faster once again, giving it a nice little cushion as we move on to Filmora Go, where each phone will have to render the same exact 1080p video file. This is an area where the iPhone historically has outperformed its Android counterparts, but as of late, that doesn't seem to be the case, with the iPhone not being able to make up any ground here as the phones export the clip at about the same rate. But the iPhone still has plenty of time to make a comeback. One area where we've seen it outperform time and time again is in this browser test, where we're searching on Google Trends and loading up a data chart, where the iPhone does so significantly faster. Now, one thing worth pointing out in this gaming row is OnePlus allows you to disable the double swipe for exiting full screen apps right there in the system settings, which technically makes its UI faster and gives it the slight advantage here. I really hope more companies like Samsung and Google let you do this without having to do any tinkering, but until then, it's an advantage for the phones that do. But double swipe or not, the iPhone makes the comeback, and with the OnePlus stuttering on forward assaults here, the iPhone takes the first lead of the speed test, just ripping through forward assaults loading into the game and then moving on to the last row, where unlike in the past, the iPhone has actually gotten a lot faster here. Before, it was always an area where Android phones made up some ground, but probably due to having more RAM to cache apps in, the iPhone is full steam ahead. And with the OnePlus being slower in Spotify and in ESPN, it allows the iPhone to finish the first app first with a time of 2 minutes and 8 seconds, while the OnePlus 12 being a bit slower in loading up Amazon here as well, clocks in 8 seconds later with a time of 2 minutes and 16. Now, with 8 gigabytes of RAM on the iPhone and 16 gigabytes of RAM on the OnePlus, I really don't expect any issues here in the second lap. One area where the OnePlus might have an advantage again is in those double swipes that are disabled for it, and we'll finally get to see just how much of a difference double swipes make. We'll go ahead and fast forward the phones to the finish line, where the iPhone finishes the test with a time of 2 minutes and 55 seconds, and disabling the double swipes helped the OnePlus finish the second lap 1 second faster, with it coming in 7 seconds later in total at 3 minutes and 2 seconds, still making the winner in this speed test the iPhone 15 Pro Max. But we still have one more test to go in the battery test, and this is the one that I'm really excited about because the OnePlus 12 has the biggest battery of any phone we've ever tested officially at a whopping 5,400 milliamp hours, which is nearly 1,000 milliamp hours more than the iPhones. Of course, specs aren't everything, and this is clearly evidenced by Apple's reign at the top of our rankings, but at some point, optimization can only go so far. Will the OnePlus 12 take the top spot away from Apple, or will the iPhone do it again and show that optimization is king? Let's find out. Alright, we'll kick things off in the phone test, where each device is going on the same 1-hour phone call. Now, we did run into issues with the OnePlus's proximity sensor where it just wouldn't turn the screen off when we covered it for some reason. So in order to make sure that both phones had an equal amount of screen on time, we turned the display off for the OnePlus for the first 48 minutes of the test, and then had it on for the remaining 12, which is what the screen time on the iPhone ended up adding up to when you count the intermittent checks that we do in between. Where 1 hour of being on a phone call later, both phones are still reporting 100%. But we'll get to see how they're actually doing here in the messaging test, where each phone is texting back and forth with our automated chatbot. And wow, 1 hour later, the OnePlus only drops down to 98%, while the iPhone drops down to 94%. So a huge lead for the OnePlus early on. I don't think we've ever seen a phone drop down to only 98% 2 hours into this test, but we'll see if the champ can recover a bit here in the email test, where we're opening up the same set of emails and then scrolling through them. But no, while the delta isn't as big as it was in messaging, the OnePlus does better once again, with it doing, well, 1+ better than the iPhone, dropping by only 4 points compared to the iPhone's 5. But this browser test is the one that I'm always most curious to see, since we're actually putting those chipsets to work as we cycle through the same set of websites every 30 seconds. And wow, once again, the OnePlus outperforms, dropping by 7 points compared to the iPhone's 10-point drop. So things aren't looking good for the iPhone. While this isn't the first time that we've seen the iPhone behind at this point in the test, it is the most it's been behind by. But 1 hour of scrolling through Instagram later, the iPhone finally does better in a task, but it's only by a single percentage point, meaning heading into the 16-hour standby, the iPhone still has to overcome a 7-point deficit if it wants to defend its title as the battery champ. And good news for it is, at least in standby, it is able to cut down on the OnePlus's lead again, with it now only 6 points behind as we start working on YouTube. Now, this YouTube test is an area where we have seen the iPhone outperform, at least in comparison to Galaxy phones in the past. But with the whopping 5,400 mAh battery capacity on the OnePlus, I don't know if that's going to happen. We've calibrated the speakers on each phone to the same decibel count, and of course we've also calibrated the display to the same 200 nits of brightness, where 1 hour of binge watching later, the OnePlus goes right back up to its 8-point advantage, not only doing better on a percentage point basis, but also in terms of the calculated amount of battery used, with it using up an estimated 378 mAh of its battery, compared to the iPhone using 399. We'll see if the iPhone can recover a bit here in the gaming test, where no, the OnePlus does better once again, increasing the delta to 9 points, with us now 23 hours into this test. And if the OnePlus can improve its lead to 10 points here in the simulated navigation test, I really don't know if the iPhone will be able to make a comeback. But good news for the iPhone is that didn't happen, with it cutting down on the OnePlus's lead, but again, only by a single percentage point. So it seems like anytime the iPhone has done better in any of these tasks, it's only been by a single point, whereas when the OnePlus does better, it's been by up to 3 or 4 points, and after an hour of listening to music on Spotify, it does it once again, with it doing 3 points better than the iPhone, earning itself the first double-digit lead of this test as we move on to Snapchat. Now, this Snapchat test is easily the most intensive one that we've done so far, with a bunch of the phone's sensors being active for this one, as we record short clips and upload them to Snap's servers, where 1 hour of doing so later, both phones take a major hit. The OnePlus drops by a whopping 15 points, while the iPhone actually does a little bit better, with it dropping by 14 points. So as we enter the last stage here in the app cycle, it's the OnePlus's battery test to lose. It's 10 points ahead, and as long as it isn't terribly inefficient while opening and closing the same set of apps, we could just be looking at the new battery champ. But the iPhone isn't gonna make it easy, with it cutting 4 points off of the OnePlus's lead 1 hour into it. And then another 30 minutes into it, it's even closer, with it only down by 5 points. However, it may just be too little too late for the iPhone. It only has 2% battery remaining, and that 2% is only able to go for 15 minutes longer before the iPhone calls it quits. While the OnePlus, on the other hand, is still holding on with 3%. So there you have it, the first time we've seen an Android phone beat an iPhone in years now, and doing so somewhat impressively. But the OnePlus's work isn't quite done yet. There's still one phone that it hasn't beat, and that is the legendary iPhone 13 Pro Max, which to this day still sits at the top of our battery test rankings. I wasn't sure if we'd ever see a phone come close to taking the top spot here, but here we are, and with the OnePlus still going at the 2-hour and 6-minute mark into the app cycle, it officially does it, taking the top spot in our rankings with it lasting 3 minutes longer than the best that we've ever tested, with a just insane total time of 28 hours and 9 minutes, making it not only the winner in this battery test, but the new and undisputed PhoneBuff style battery test champ. Anyways, that is it for me in this video. Thank you for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the very next episode.